Hi, it's Chris with Superfly, and today we're talking about kiting techniques, specifically how you lean forward and how you lean back, how activating the hips can affect your kiting experience. Let's do it. What's up, it's Chris with Superfly, and we're here to talk about how your posture, meaning how much you lean forward or how much your body twists, can drastically affect your ability to keep a glider on the ground. It can drastically affect your ability to flare well. It can also drastically affect your ability to set the glider down after you land. So if you ever wanted to be more confident on the side of the hill, if you ever wanted your landing flare to be better, and if you ever wanted to be more consistent at landing the glider on the trailing edge, we've got the goods for you today. Funniest thing about this is that we actually didn't put this into words or consciously understand what was happening until the last couple years. And we've been slow to debut this video because it's a new notion. And it reminds us that we don't know everything about this deal. And there are new things to be discovered all the time. And it's reason for you to keep seeking out good information. And it's also reason for you to keep coming back to our YouTube channel and checking for some of this new beta. Furthermore, come around, play with us. It's not enough to just know about these dynamics. You kind of need someone to be there kind of riding you about it and pointing out what's going on as it's going down, and then also helping you to recover from the funny situations, you know? So off we go. We're gonna start with keeping the glider down. It turns out, and this is the main dynamic that we're gonna check out today, if you put your hands back and you lean forward, it's totally different for the glider than if you keep your hands back and lean back. The difference is the amount of brake that is affected on the glider. You lean forward like this, it's as if not much brake is being pulled. And then when you lean back like this, it's as if a ton of brake is being pulled. Anybody who's on the side of the hill like this, you notice, you'll see them taking wraps, you'll see them leaning into it. It's kind of natural, especially since we like to torpedo when we're facing the other way, but it totally sabotages the deal and it makes it so normal good brakes don't work. So if we're putting a study on it, as I go like this, then the risers come down and close to me, right? And that makes my brakes long. And as I go like this and I put the risers as far away from me as they can be, that makes the brakes short and therefore effective. So here we go. We'll just delve in on a little kiting. If we go full brake and lean into it, and especially if we twist the body like a lot of folks do, then it can work, but it won't work nearly as well as if when I pull, I go like this and I'm proud with my body and square. Proud and square. All right, let's go up to the edge of the hill here and we'll see how it works when you're flaring. Alrighty, so there's two possibilities when you flare. One of them is you could be like this, right? And the other one is you could be like this, kind of upright and proud. And so what I'm going to point out is that when you flare, you're proud, your pelvis is forward. As you give the brakes, you'll get a more authoritative flare than if you come in something like this and just give a soft flare. And we know from our experience kiting that it's all about the length of the risers. And when the riser length changes, the amount of brake that you're affecting with a certain hand position changes. And we know that when you stand tall, that makes the risers high and the carabiners up, and that gives you big brake authority. So again, try to avoid this. That'll give you a kind of a soft flare. And if you really need to get a nice flare at the end of your flight, finesse, 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 and then at the end, kind of proud. You see how it stopped flying? I was able to pull a ton of brake. Let's talk about side of the hill real quick. Okay, so wrestling on the side of the hill in wind can be either high intensity or kind of chill, depending on how you play it. And so an example of what makes it weird, one thing is taking a lot of wraps can make it weird because see how the trailing edge comes up? So people think a lot of wraps will help. No, a lot of wraps can make some really weird shapes. Less so with this mini wing, more so on a real glider, but you get the idea there. You see how it's starting to take some weird shapes? So less is not always better, or sorry, more is not always better. The other one is a lot of people will do this as they start to get worked. And when you do that, then the glider sometimes it'll still be popping up. And if you let your body twist when you're doing this kind of stuff, and especially if you lean into it, then it gets really weird and really crappy, and the glider doesn't stay that manageable. So if I'm on the side of the hill with students, then I'm constantly reminding them, hips square to the glider. So if they're like this, not good for hanging out and keeping equilibrium. And if they're getting ready to go, then again, I try to get them to be square and even. And if they're like this, I notice that the brakes won't work that well, so I get them to stand like this. So this is your preferred hanging out on the side of the hill posture right here. The only other one that we promised was set the glider down nicely after you land logic. And so we'll go up top and we'll practice that a little bit. Again, body square. Notice I keep my head right in front of the risers. It's not really that interesting for me to push my chin into the risers here. Everything works better if I just move my head back away. It's not just a visual thing, it's actually changing the length of the risers. Cool? Notice when we turn and face forward, eyes on the horizon. When we turn back, there's a sinking and eyes horizon. When it's time to turn forward, sink a little extra, eyes horizon, chest forward automatically. And we have a new vocabulary word for you, that's elbow pit. I put the elbow pit, this part right here, on the carabiner. So elbow pit on the carabiner, but I still keep my hands up here where they can be precise. Remember, back here you can only be so precise. So this is our preferred high wind posture. Just a little aside for you, a little bonus while we're talking about this other thing. So here we go, eyes horizon as we turn, walking it backwards. So now it's time to set the glider down. Let's see if we can show what happens if you let the body twist and you lean forward into it. You see how immediately the glider made a weird shape over there and flipped over? In this case it worked, it didn't school me, and it wasn't bad, but if you could imagine with the full size, we'll do it again. So lean into it, body twist. You see how it flipped over? And then it's doing this endlessly. So how do I fix it? Number one, if it's upside down, just let off. Now the glider's upside down. If you ever have an upside down glider, take a moment. You don't need to do anything to it, because an upside down glider, even unlike a right side up one, it's in equilibrium and it's gonna stay there. Right now I've got a full twist, so if you ever need to turn and face or get the twist out, don't do it one at a time. Grab with two hands, duck under everything, and then when I come back, everything's straight. Cool. So here I can go ahead and pull one brake and it'll come back over. That's kind of a nice art, but one of the key things about it is going to be keeping the body square. So here I go ahead and pull. I keep my body square. It comes back around really easy. If you get animated and you put a bunch of twist in it, if you lean forward, all bets are off. Try to show one more time how it is when you go to set the glider down and you're not mindful of your posture. So full brake, body twist, lean forward. Kind of worked, but you saw the glider take on a weird shape. I'll try twisting the other way as I set it down. So you just landed, you want to set the glider down, you pull full brake, but you lean forward and twist. Again, it worked, but with a full size, if you're not square, then it's going to put some weird action on it. Look how different the length of the risers are. Now the positive demo, this is what you want. When it's time to set it down, pull both, stand tall, be proud. Glider sets down really nicely, square and even, and on your full size, that'll make all the difference in the world. Again, don't watch the glider, just watch the posture. Exactly square to the glider, head right in front of the risers, exact even pull, chest back, hands back. It will set down every time. And the idea is that, you know, there's 10 available points during a flight. And it starts with your pre-flight and it continues all the way till you set the glider down. And if you set the glider down and it flips over while you do, you're missing out on 1 point. So if we're holding up scorecards, you get a 9. You missed the point on the set down. If you really want to own the set down, it's all about chest back, hands behind the seat. In our school, we have this little anecdote that tends to work for people. I'm going to share it with you, and maybe, just maybe, it makes you laugh and makes you remember. Many days start like this for me, and then as the session finishes up, especially on a holiday weekend like this, I go down and chase down my family at whatever function. And I show up at this one picnic late in my own car. My son is there, and he's standing on top of a picnic table. He jumps off the picnic table and he says, "Boom!" Everybody laughs. He says, "Dad, I just drank 2 Gatorade in a row." So he's whacked out on sugar and Gatorade, and everybody laughs forever. And over time, you know, he remembered that everybody laughed at that. So here and there, he'd be jumping around saying, "Boom!" And he's doing this pelvic thrust with the hands back. And we started to think about that, and we realized, you know, Zane, that's not that cool to do out in public. But then we realized that's actually the move that we're looking for when we set the glider down. It's the boom move. And so, whereas it's not that cool for my 7-year-old to do at the family picnics, because it's just the tiniest bit borderline obscene, when we tell the students, after we tell them that story, and then after they land, we don't say, "Lean back, pull both brakes, keep your hips square." We just say, "Boom!" And our people smile and they laugh, and the glider sets down beautifully, and they get all the points. And so I'm hoping that boom works for you. Have fun with it. Thanks so much for tuning in. Remember, check us out on Instagram, Facebook, also Superfly Paragliding School YouTube. That's probably where you found us here today. But keep coming back. Come and fly with us here in Salt Lake City. This is the point of the mountain south side, a little late in the morning. It's a usually early morning gig. Show up at 6 or 7 in the morning, depending on the season. Spend a couple hours with us. We've got time for you. We'll make it happen, and we can point out some of the nuance and subtlety in kiting that many people have never wrapped their head around and that hasn't really been put into words. It's our pleasure to be passing on this great information with you. Thanks so much for tuning in.